Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage, it's an XK8 show. So if you're unfamiliar with the channel, please subscribe. But we are a channel that is predominantly about Jaguar XK8s and XKRs. I have an XK8 convertible, a very early car called Purdy, which I'm always tinkering around with and trying to improve and sharing my experiences and knowledge with all of you fine folk. I also play around with camper vans and Fiat baths and all sorts of other fun stuff. But it's predominantly the XK8. And whenever we have an XK8 show like today, it's where I'm just sharing back some of the clips, advice and videos that have been sent in by you guys, the subscribers, so we can all have a look at them. So let's just crack on. And remember, if you've got something you'd like to share, send me a little video clip or photo or story, preferably with pictures, to john@tothegarage.co.uk. Let's get on. So some of you are going to recognise this picture, this beautiful car. This is from Ted Allen from the Isle of Wight. And he entered these photo into our recent XK8 calendar photo competition for 2022. Ted has sent in some images and video clips of him doing a little project on his car that I know a lot of people in Europe would be interested in looking at, and that is conversion of the reflectors on the sides of the front bumper into repeater lamps. In the UK we have just reflectors. If you're in the States, you're going to be wondering what all the fuss is about, because your reflectors light up as side markers in most states in the US. They're just dead reflectors on our cars. Over to Tim.
A little modification I've just done to my Jag. As you can see, there's an orange marker on the front. Looks a bit like a indicator, but it's actual fact for continental market, American or whatever. They have it as a side marker, be illuminated. In this country they ain't even got a bulb holder in it. I thought, wouldn't it be a good idea, especially since it's poking your nose out a junction, that if that would flash with the indicator. Well, I'll prove that it can be done. This side I've had it out, I drilled the back out, fitted a bulb holder and wired it in over the wheel arch to the back repeater. Here we go. 1 10mm hole, carefully being drilled. I want to use both hands to find all the dice now, so I shall cut this short. We'll cut the hole in the lens now, back of the, just nice snug fit for the bulb holder to go in there. It's even got an O-ring that will seal down on that edge. Right, well, got my earth wire on the power probe connected. Just gonna put that one on. Yes, the little red light's on, so I've got the circuit. Press the button. Yep. Oh, we're almost ready to go. Well, I've just connected it up. Crimped a couple of terminals on, put the wire there, slide this little bit of heat shrink over there, give it a little bit of extra protection when it's inside so it don't chafe against anything.
Ted had took a couple of wires from his existing repeater, wired up these in parallel, so soldered on a couple of extra extension wires, and then very neatly trailed the cables over the top of the wheel arch by cable tying it up to the chassis member, as you can see, making a really neat job. If anybody wants to use these lights as side markers, i.e. permanently illuminated, then there is a connector dangling inside the wheel arch just behind the headlight that is there that you can use to wire them up. But in the UK at least, amber side markers on a vehicle tend to be sort of commercial vehicles, so maybe not a look we'd go after. The repeaters, however, brilliant job. Well done, Ted. Ted was also kind enough to share this image with us, where he'd previously brained himself on the bonnet catches, and so now when he's got the bonnet up, he pushes a little piece of pipe lagging onto the latches. Good plan. A name that might be familiar to regular subscribers to the channel is Gary Van Remotel. And Gary is a regular subscriber, contributor, and the author of the XK8 Bible, which is an online tome which chronicles all manner of interesting facts, figures, info on fixes for the XK8. I host Gary's Bible on my website, so head over to tothegarage.co.uk, and the images above are showing you how to get to Gary's Bible. Well, Gary's been hard at work in his garage too, and recognising that you can no longer get direct from Jaguar the breather hoses which are attached to either cam cover on our engines, and that they are perishing, getting old, getting heat affected, and very often when you remove them they crack. Then he's started building up his own breather hoses and is now able to offer them for sale. So if that's something that interests you, you need to go and check out the XK8 Bible and download the latest copy so you can get his contact details. If you've got a smartphone and are more tech savvy, then if you point the camera on your smartphone at the screen now, at the QR code, then this is a link that will take you straight to Gary's XK8 Bible. The next clip is from a subscriber that I only know as Kim. Sorry, Kim. But it made me giggle, so it's going in. Another recent video that you guys seem to enjoy quite a lot was placing the waste seals or window scrapers on our Jaguar XK8 XKRs. If you don't know already, then these items, original equipment, are going to now cost you well over £1,000 for a set. So I came up with my own solution, which included modifying some mini items. Well, we had some great conversations in the live chat on the back of that video, and Jonathan Slade was telling me how he'd done his with a continuous strip of black rubberized, vulcanized seal, and bonded them into place using tiger seal. And here's an image of the eBay site from which he bought it, the name of the seller, RTAY5993, and it certainly produces a cheap, effective solution. The looks are not going to suit everybody, but if you've got a dark car with dark seals and you don't want the stainless and yours are very badly deteriorated, then this might be the fix for you. It's certainly very easy to apply. During the video premieres, you can text each other whilst the premiere's going on. And people say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, the chat that you had, why can't I get involved? It's only available when the video is going out for the first time live. So if you always miss out on that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the little bell notification icon. that will give you a message and let you know that the premiere is coming up and almost count down to it. That way you can watch along live and live chat text with myself and everybody else who's watching at that time, and some really good stuff comes out of that. Another heavily viewed video has been the one on opening a locked boot on an XK8 XKR, and they are vault-like. They've done a good job at protecting your boot contents. And off the back of that video, Jim Northrup was kind enough to comment and then later email and chat to tell me about his experiences and how he'd managed to find another not too damaging way of getting into the boot with a little bit of finesse and finagle. And he sent some pictures so I can share that with you guys. It's another really good one, and one which I would definitely try out. You might want to go back and watch my video before you try this, just to orientate yourself with where the various bits and pieces are inside the car boot. But here is a view of the back of Jim's car, and we're obviously looking at the boot lid and the gap between the boot lid and the metal of the main car body, and you can only see a little bit of that, and then you've got the plastic bumper. What Jim did was drill a 1/4 inch hole through that gap. So he's not drilled the boot lid, he's not drilled the plastic bumper, he's drilled in the gap, the closure line, if you like, between boot and bodywork, and hit the vertical surface or near vertical surface, but just behind it. And he's measured up to make sure he's as close as possible to the center line of the car. This is with the boot lid open, obviously, in this picture, but you would be drilling this with your boot lid locked shut. You can then pass a thin screwdriver or a steel rod through that hole, going straight in until you meet resistance. And then, to quote Jim, nudge the handle to the left, which will flick the mechanism, the lever on the mechanism, to the right and release the boot lid. Obviously you will need several goes at this. You can just about see the tip of the screwdriver to the right of the triangle of rubber in the middle of the image. So not straightforward, but certainly something that you would achieve with a few goes, I think. And here's a slightly different angle, looking straight down into that lock cavity through the little rubber flange or screen that keeps the dirt out of it. So thank you so much, James. This is a very good additional tool in our arsenal to breaking into the boots of our XK8s, should we ever need to. But always look for applying a small electrical charge under the bonnet first, and use the button on the dashboard to pop the boot. James had issues with valet controls as well, so he'd got even more issues to deal with. Andrew Morell is another one of our subscribers, and he sent me quite recently quite a similar solution that includes drilling from underneath the plastic bumper but into a very similar location to get a very similar effect. The downside of it is you need a very long drill. Andrew actually had to weld a rod to a drill to get access to that right area, but it is doable. Now, of course, all of these techniques for opening the boot lid are a bit of a moot point if you've got a workaround. And Jaguar did install a workaround. So if your remote control won't open your boot lid, and the button on the dashboard won't open your boot lid, and you can't put power to the terminals under the bonnet, which should allow you to open your boot lid, then there is a secret keyhole. And the secret keyhole uses your ignition key to open your boot. Note that if you've got a green key, that's a valet key, and it will not open your boot lid. What Andrew has done is sent in some magnificent photos which really show the disc displacer lock mechanism that is in the boot lid and the ignition and the doors of our Jags. And it is very different to most other locks. And this really shows up how you've got to use it or lose it, because if these things get dirty or corroded, they're just not going to work. What we're looking at here is the barrel of the secret keyhole. It's been removed from its housing, and that little silver rod in front of Andrew's thumb is sticking up. It's proud. That's because the lock is locked, and that will prevent this barrel from rotating in its housing, because the housing that it's been pulled out of has a little groove as indicated by that arrow in the picture. So to unlock the car, that silver pin has to be lowered into the groove, like in this picture. And in this picture, it's flush, and you would be able to rotate this barrel within the housing and unlock your boot. So all we need to understand is, how does that little pin get lowered? Well, it might surprise you to understand that it literally just falls down under gravity. It's picked up by the mechanism when it's locked, but to unlock it must fall into this groove. And the groove contains all of the little discs that, with the correct shape of key inserted, they will rotate, not very much, to a position where there is a little cutout. And when all the cutouts line up, the pin will drop down just a fraction and become level with the outside of the barrel. So what this means is, if you've got a lock that's very different, that's hard to pick in a conventional sense, unless you've got a very special spider key, which costs a fortune, and is a piece of engineering art. But the mechanism itself is very, very reliant on being clean and nothing sticking. So this lock needs to be used. It needs to be flushed out now and again with very, very thin oil, or even cleaned. And its location at the back of the car in the secret position is quite good for protecting it, as long as the little gate that closes over the lock barrel once you pull the key out does close, and as long as the key is clean that you're pushing into it. Either of those aren't true, it's not going to work. So these are beautiful images. Thank you very much. And I think, having seen this, a lot of us can understand better the sensitivity, if you like, of that lock. A lot of people will think, because of the shape of the key, this is just a straightforward Ford lock. But the Ford locks of the same era had 6 discs. Aston Martin and Jaguar adopted an 8-disc model. So very delicate. We'll round out this show with a couple more articles related to accessories, which are dear to my heart, and I've got a really good accessory fit coming up soon, but more on that another day. So I did a video on installing the original optional extra XK8 XKR Torch into my car, and again, intriguing and interesting for me, gave you guys a bit of a chuckle, but no sensible person is ever going to do it, because very expensive way of getting a very average torch installed in your car. But I love it because of the originality angle. Adrian Levy has sent us some pictures of his installation of a non-standard, but it's got to be said, a hell of a lot more sensible and usable torch. He found on eBay a rechargeable power bank style torch, very cheap, and was able to modify it by hot gluing in a cable tie as a handle, which enables him to pop it into the exact same location as the original optional extra torch goes in a car, in a special little cubby top left of the glove box. And it fits in there, but getting it back out's a challenge. So this cable tied in handle makes it usable. I think it's excellent. And if you did want a torch in your glove box and you have got the aperture for fitting one, Not sure it's on the later models of cars, cost downs, you know. I think this is superb. Well done, Adrian, and thank you so much for sharing the pictures. While we're on the subject of accessories, fellow rare Jaguar accessory fan Terry Collins has managed to track down some of the fog light protectors. I always think of them as like contact lenses for the fog lights on our cars. Terry had suffered a couple of damaged fog lights and decided to use that as an opportunity to track down this really rare accessory. His search taking him through dealers in Holland that said they had some online but didn't have some when he checked it back, through various other places, until eventually he tracks them down in the States. And these are they. Again, a rare accessory. You may never have seen them. They really do look like a contact lens with clips. And these are fitted onto the fog light unit, and then the fog light unit refitted into its housing in the bumper. And the combination of the clips, the lens, and a small gap means that you shouldn't get broken fog lights. So thanks very much to Terry for sending these images. As I said, not a common thing to see. Well, it's time for the last article in our infrequent XK8 Show magazine style program. And very often I like to leave you with a bit of a whodunit or a request for help. This is a really interesting one. Here we've got the very early car of Marko Manninen from Finland. And Marku's car is a September 96 manufactured XK8 convertible. Like Purdy, you can see she's a really early car because as a convertible it should have a hump on the rear on the boot lid for a high level brake light, but this car does not have it. So immediately you know it's very early. Marku contacted me because he'd recently taken his car for its MOT, if we're in the UK, or annual test for sure anyway. And it got a pass, which is fantastic, but it had an advisory or a recommendation to repair the rear fog light. And as Marku said, this is the first time in 25 years any of the previous owners had recorded an MOT issue relating to repairing the other fog light. So he assumed that the fog light was out. Initially he contacted me for some advice on whether or not the fog lights were only on one side of the car, and I explained that no, they're on both sides. It's a British manufactured car, even though in some countries it's not a legal requirement to have fog lights, and so it's relatively common to have a single fog light on an imported car to the UK, for instance, because a tail light cluster will be modified to include an extra red bulb. It should certainly, as a wholeheartedly British car, have two rear fog lights. So he set to investigating whether he'd got a blown bulb or a fuse. He removed the rear light cluster from the right hand side so he could see that all the bulbs were in place and work out which lamp was the fog light. All good. And then when he went to the left hand side, there is no fog light, as in no fog lamp hole. The light cluster, the lens unit, isn't even drilled to receive the fog lamp. Now the backing plate, the plate where the bulbs are screwed into, is there with the socket and it's all wired up and ready to go, but the fact that the cluster, which is original, has not even been drilled says this car has never ever had two fog lights on the rear. Now this is the really interesting part. It's a British manufactured car. I don't think that there is any logic whatsoever to saying, oh, this car's got to go to Finland and they only require one rear fog light, therefore let's not drill this. Economies of scale, so you're going to make your lamps the same for every country if that's possible. And as you've already got the electrical side of it all sorted and provided, why on earth would you specify a lamp where one cluster for 1 or 2 or 3 nations is undrilled? This is, in my head, really, really strange. I've never seen this on an XK8 before, and my thoughts are actually going to, this is a very early car. Marku's car's VIN number ends in 46, 0046. This is the 46th car that was deemed to be saleable that was ever produced. And I think, like on Purdy, she's got some pre-production parts still on her. So these have been components produced for the early trials, maybe light clusters where they had to drill out the hole in the factory depending on what they were going to use them for, and these are just leaked out into production. What do you guys think? Has anybody else got a one rear fog lighted XK8 or XKR? Very, very unlikely, I would suggest. And if it is only a single rear fog light, is yours not even got the hole? This is fascinating. Obviously dead easy fix for Marku. He can just drill a hole and put a bulb in. But fascinating, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences. And has anybody seen or heard of an XK8 with a single rear fog light? Marku is obviously a big fan of the channel, and he sent me a picture of his car in his garage with the TV monitor on the front wall so that he can see to the garage in his garage, possibly whilst even sat in his XK8. How cool is that? I love these images of people's garages. I feel I see a little bit of insight into our friends in the various parts of the world, whether they're super tidy, super messy, have really interesting things in them like BMW enduro bikes. Why not send in a picture of your garage or shed, just showing the sorts of things that you've got in there, just a single image that says something about your garage. And if you want to send me a few words as well, that'd be brilliant. And send that to john@tothegarage.co.uk. And remember, if you've got a story or a question, or even better, a short video that you'd like to send in, I would love to share it on future episodes of the XK8 show. So for now, I'm going to say drive safe, get out to the garage or the shed and do some tinkering and enjoy yourselves. And I'll see you all very soon. Bye. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.